Hello friends, it is time for the finale episode of Year of Recs, a series I've been doing all year, getting book recommendations from different places in order to try and have my best reading year ever. Has that worked? Not necessarily. Here is the leaderboard of, oh, I'm gonna fall on the bed, of all the episodes we've had so far. As you can see, my goal this year was to have a 3.8 average rating. Quite a lot of these are under a 3.8, so have not helped our goal. But today, for the finale episode, I wanted to go big or go home. As you can see, I'm not at home. I'm in Bath, and we're going to be going to Mr. B's Emporium today to do one of their reading spas, which is like a 90-minute session where you sit down with a bookseller, tell them all about your taste in books, what books you've loved. I'm actually going to have to think about that. Like, I'm going to have to maybe get my Goodreads out, or maybe I should bring my reading spreadsheet. Maybe I should print out my reading spreadsheet, like stacks of... You talk about this with a bookseller and they give you book recommendations, and I'm so excited for this experience. This is something that a lot of you guys recommended I do as part of this, and I thought it was the perfect finale episode. So I'm going to head out, go to my reading spa. I really don't know what to expect because this is very different than anything we've done in this series, anything I've ever done before, but I'm very, very excited. So I'll see you when we're there, but let's go see what the bookseller is going to recommend to me.
Well, listen, the reading spa, despite the kind of fancy name, really is just an excuse for us to talk about books.
Yeah.
Kind of the same way that we talk about books to everyone at the counter, but just in a slightly more organised, theatrical manner. No, much more. So yeah, the idea is just to quiz you about books. Now, you gave us some details, which I did look at this morning, and had a have a little quick think about it, but I kind of also like to start afresh just for the purpose of conversation, because sometimes people suddenly say things that are completely different, and sometimes they repeat the same, and that way I then the best recommendations that I come up with are almost certainly the ones that will just come from that I'll jot down. So it looks like the vast majority of your reading is fiction, or looked like from what you wrote, almost all. Is it?
I wish I read more non-fiction. So before I started my channel, actually, my reading was 50% fiction, 50% non-fiction, and I'd like alternate.
Okay.
But I think it's a symptom of really making videos and kind of reading what.
And that's what your kind of viewership or the people you're connecting with.
Read more fiction. So I've just over time, I think I've only read like 9 non-fiction this year. So I do read a bit.
And that's not that.
Well, as a proportion.
It's
very small.
How many fiction do you think?
I've read like 130 something total. It's like 120 something fiction. Probably.
Okay. So 10%, a little lower than 10%.
Yeah.
Non-fiction. So let's focus almost entirely on fiction, but I'll just ask that if you're reading non-fiction, because sometimes it can even inform the novels, what sections of a bookshop you go to?
Women non-fiction. I like history, politics, but predominantly like women history, I think.
Talk to me about your kind of home-based genres, and a few authors that you authors or subgenres that you just go back to again and again.
Okay, so my 2 most read genres pretty equal. Are mystery and fantasy.
Okay.
So with mystery, I do love a good murder mystery. I'm reading my way through the Poirots in order, but slowly. Like 1 or 2 a year. So I do love Agatha. I love anything that's kind of referential to the murder mystery genre as well. Like I really enjoyed The Three Dahlias. Yeah, great. Katie Watson.
That's been one of the ones that's, I guess, off the sort of modern day, homage to Christie.
I felt like more people, it hasn't got as many ratings as I feel like it deserves.
So we have this.
We should read it.
With this weird thing, because of the reading spas and because of the reading subscriptions, if something goes well here, we end up with like completely being asymmetric to general kind of numbers of kind of chart. We have these books that we think are super famous, but really it's kind of just here and then a few other places, and that's one of them. Like that is probably our best-selling kind of.
Really.
In terms of like, if you said, what's our best-selling Christie homage or Christie adjacent.
That's interesting. I'm like trying to push that series to everyone, because I just feel like more people should read it. But I do love dearly Rich Dotson.
Okay.
I know that's like a basic answer,
no.
but I just love him. I love his books. I love There's a Murder Club. I just read We Solve Murders.
Yes.
I love it. But I don't necessarily always love what I call Thursday Murder Club rip-offs. Like the
So there was a whole
sprung up around it. I just think,
and some have done really well. Like Janice Hallett became a huge
I love Janice
thing,
Hallett,
which happened. She was I don't think you could. Yeah, they were kind of almost.
Yeah, I mean more like the genre of just old people solving murder mysteries because the Thursday Night Club has done so well.
Yeah, fine.
And it's not that I object to that as a because obviously I love the Thursday Night Club.
Yeah.
I just feel like a lot came out because
It's the
that
same
had
with
done
everything.
so well. I love the humanness, the human stories.
Yeah.
Have you read? I don't know if have you read The Last Devil to Die, the fourth one?
I haven't read that. No, I've not read the whole series. I've not. Is it good? Is that the best one?
Yeah,
That's
it's the best
kind of very
one.
useful
It's so
information for us.
sad.
It's
It's
an
so
inside track.
sad.
Really?
It makes me cry.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love him. I just love the way he writes and like the little nuggets of like, who else is writing about like Greg's and like,
So
tipping
the
point
real
and like just all those little details that he throws in.
Amazing.
So I do love Richard Desmond. He's probably my favourite murder mystery author, but I know that's a basic answer.
And so, hang on. So with the Poirots you mentioned, have you gone back and done others of the kind of golden era alongside?
I've done a few. I read The Wintringham Mystery by Anthony Berkeley.
Okay. Yeah.
I have read... What else have I read of like Golden Age? Oh, I'm blanking.
Like, have you read?
I haven't read Dorothy L. Sayers yet.
Or Marjorie Allingham.
No.
She's.
I read The Feast, although that's a bit after.
Yeah,
I didn't
that's a
love.
reissue.
I didn't love that.
It's a bit different though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it is kind of the setting's a bit Christie.
Yeah,
But it's
but
actually.
the playing out of it is a bit. Yeah. But yeah, I haven't read a ton of other Golden Age. I'm like, I'm blanking.
Do you always keep it kind of quite in the mystery bit of crime rather than thriller? Do you do any modern thrillers?
I read quite a lot of thrillers too, but I don't really like domestic thrillers.
Okay.
Like husband and wife, or one of them cheating on each other. I just think that's boring.
Yeah. Okay.
I definitely do lean more towards mystery.
Yeah.
But I do read some thriller.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't like spy,
No.
espionage.
Yeah.
I'm not really into that.
No. Although I'm going to show you one
Okay.
tiptoes into that genre anyway, just because I like breaking the edges of things. No, I'm going to show you one because it's great. Because I think about the spy, well, just by reference to what you said about non-fiction, I do think of the spy genre as being particularly male-dominated and male in its kind of... But there's a couple of great early writers of the spy genre who were women writing at the time that all of the kind of American men were doing their spy fiction.
Interesting.
And there's one in particular, if I've got it down, I will see if I've got it in today. There's one that reads a bit like a crime thriller and a bit like a spy fiction. It's a bit gold agey. And then and fantasy.
Fantasy.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So talk to me about what you look for in a great fantasy book.
Okay, so I'd say there's like two different types of fantasy that I really love.
Okay.
Like maybe kind of lyrical, beautiful writing fantasy.
Yeah.
I love Catherine Arden.
Yeah.
Love Catherine Arden.
Yeah, she's great. We've done at least maybe 2 events.
Yeah, I almost came to last week because we were living in Wales at the time, so we were near her, but I couldn't make it.
Yeah.
I loved the Warm Hands Ghost. I love the Brendan Nightingale series.
Yeah.
She's just a writer that just like...
Yeah. Yeah, it's so rich, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the way she sort of uses sort of mythic
Yeah. Oh, I love...
imagery in there. Yeah. It's great.
Or Erin Morgenstern.
Yeah.
Love the Salacy, love the Night Circus.
Yeah.
And then I do love, when it's done well, I do love a bit of cozy fantasy.
Yep.
And I loved Legends and Lattes.
Yeah.
By Travis Bowdry. I feel like Travis Bowdry and Rich Osman's writing makes me feel the same.
Okay.
I don't know, they just like do the same thing for me, even though they're very different. I loved Chest of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson.
Yes.
But I don't think I usually love like romantasy. Cozy romantasy as much, like just more.
No, I get
fantasy.
it. The part of the trick is not showing you like so many books that you can't. I got to try and narrow it down to the best ones because you do read obviously very widely, so I've got to find the ones that can be the best.
Yeah, I really think books that blend genres. Like I always say one of my perfect things is like mystery, fantasy, and historical in one.
Yeah,
that's I read quite a lot of like
because the
historical leaning things. So maybe like mysteries, it's primary genre, but it's historical as well.
Okay, you like Babel?
Oh, I do love a bit of R.F. Kuang. I've read all of R.F. Kuang.
Any particular sort of bits of time that you are drawn to?
Victorian. I love a good Victorian setting.
Yeah.
Or dabbling in Regency as well. Like I could tell you Pride and Prejudice was my favourite book I read this whole year, but that would be a complete red herring because it's just because it's Jane Austen.
Well, but it's not
And I love Pride
necessarily.
and Prejudice.
She's
and
not
I
bad at it. She can write.
love a bit of Janie. I love a bit of Janie.
Have you read all of the or any of the kind of spin-offs of
Yes.
people who leap off from Jane Austen?
Yeah, I like a good. Oh, I was thinking more like.
What do you think?
I was thinking. Oh yeah, I read Miss Austen Investigates.
Right,
this
yeah,
year.
okay, well, that's fine as well. Yeah.
Janie's character.
Yeah.
I like anything that's referential as well.
Yes,
Like
okay.
I like either referencing like in historical books, like real people appearing, or
Yeah.
one of my you probably won't know it, but one of my favourite series ever is called The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter by Theodora Goss. And it's basically the daughters and female versions of classic Gothic Victorian characters. Catherine Moreau
Yeah.
is writing the book like as if
Right,
she's the
as if
author,
she's
and they cut in with like objecting to things that she's written, and it would be like written as I just
So
love
that's
it.
like the book's like got a.
Well, the book's like written. Occasionally, it'll like show that it's written from her perspective.
Yeah, okay.
And then there'll be points where like it will just say, Diana, I didn't say that.
Right.
Catherine, yes, you did, or whatever.
Did you ever read J.J. Abrams' book S? Have you seen
No,
that?
I'm intimidated by it.
Yeah, but I just thought because the narration, there's a triple narration thing. It looks like an old library book. It's even got a little sticker that's a little peely on the edge of it, and it must have cost them so much to produce.
Yeah.
When you open it, it's a book, but then it's annotated throughout and it's like a love story between two people who've been reading this book in the library. It's like, and they've written a love story in the margins, and then there's all these inserts as well. So it's like a mystery. It's just so many.
But you do like books that have like multimedia.
Mixed media, I love
mixed
mixed media. Like Janice Hallett, I love mixed media when it's done well. I'm trying to think of a True Crime Story by Joseph Knott.
Yes.
It's kind of like all interviews
Yeah.
spiced together. So I love a bit of mixed media, or anything a bit unusual.
Yeah. There's a one called the Rorschach texts as well. Did you ever see?
No.
I'm going to show you just for fun. My other question would be about what you don't like, because we talked a lot about what you do like. Are there books or authors that you should like, right? But not looking at this, not something that's completely outside your general home base of reading.
I don't like dual timeline, where it's like
Dual time.
50-50
Where
compete
it's
for
hopping.
dominance. Hopping around or like flashbacks is fine if there's a predominant main timeline. I don't like it when it's dual timeline and they're like fighting to be the main one. I don't mind multiple timelines.
Yeah, got it. But
But-
if it's
Timelines can be an issue for
I
me.
think that dual timelines, I don't know what you think about it. My feeling on it is the issue with that is it can work if they're both really strong.
Yeah.
But often you end up just
Liking one of them.
desperately wanting to.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know where it probably not. You probably haven't read because you might have, but it's not in the core. It's all the light we cannot see.
Oh, see, I really liked that though.
Yeah, I love it.
Oh, okay, I love it.
That's really interesting that you really like that because that is non-genre fiction. So we're going to come on to.
Okay, well, I think of it as historical.
It's historical, yeah, okay. So it's 20th century historical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that's what in my brain I just view that as
But
historical.
what I was about to say
guess.
is, I think that one works because I think that I think it's really
Yeah.
short hops.
Yes.
Like it's 5 pages at a time. So you just keep thinking, oh, do you know what? I really want to find out what's going on with Vern. Oh, I really want to know what's going on with
Yeah.
Mary Law. And you're kind of hopping between the two characters.
Yeah, I loved that.
Okay.
I loved that. That was like one of the first books that got me back into reading.
Was it?
Getting back into reading, yeah.
What else was in that list?
Oh, this is what I'm terrified of reading again because I don't know how they'll hold up.
Okay.
But The Secret History by
yeah.
Donata. I mean, like, I remember vividly reading that and just being like, oh my god, that was, yeah.
It's probably going to hold up pretty well. I mean, I do think it's a book that people enjoy at a particular stage of their life often. But I don't, but yeah.
Yeah, but that was around that time. I can't think of anything else that was like particularly memorable around that time. Other than, I don't know if you know Sadie by Courtney Summers. I love Courtney Summers, but I don't know if you know.
I vaguely know the name.
Sadie, it's like, it's to me the best, I like, it's the best podcast book that's ever been done. And just the audiobook is incredible and the books, Courtney Summers' books are very sad. Just,
Brilliant. All right, I got
my
enough
goodness.
to go on. I got enough to go on.
I'm just giving you so much
No, it's fine.
information.
So most of the books that I've written down are going to be downstairs, so I'm going to go and gather them.
Okay.
I'm just looking at our shelves, and I'm going to just say a lot of the ones that are up here are more likely to be ones you already know, because obviously there'll be a bit of that, especially. Have you read Burial Rites, by the way, by Hannah Kent?
No.
Okay, I'm going to show you that in a second before I go down. I'm going to show you a couple probably before I go down.
Okay.
There's probably a couple of fantasy ones where I'm more likely than not get a colleague to come up and tell you about them as well. I've read some fantasy, but I've read more of the other stuff beside your week. All right, I'm going to show you Burial Rites. There's more probably in this room to show you, but I'm going to show you this one, and I'm going to let you guys hang out for probably 5-10 minutes while I go and gather a load of stuff, and then I'm going to do that. I'll just show you this one. This came out, I don't know how long ago this came out. This is crime, and it's kind of a bit true crime as well, in that it's a rewriting of a crime that took place in the 19th century.
Yeah.
It's set in Iceland.
Oh.
And it's in Iceland, where the author herself sort of described it to me like, it's kind of almost like Robin Hood level story, but in Iceland, like as in it's almost taken on mythic. It did happen, but it's been retold so many times, this story. And essentially it's about a woman who has been convicted of involvement in a crime, but in Iceland in 1830s there were no prisons. The fact was there were absolutely no prisons.
Yeah.
So he's put with this farm, basically. They said, can you look after this woman we've just convicted of this crime, because we haven't got a prison, and this is in the middle of rural Iceland. And so she's spending 6 months with the kind of sword hanging over her of having committed this crime on this farm. And then a pastor kind of comes into the storyline, who is this guy who's kind of been tasked with overseeing her spiritual well-being as she prepares to face her sentence. And that kind of starts muddying the waters, and then you start wondering and you start unpicking the facts of her guilt. The crime is not front and center. It's like the aftermath of at the beginning the decision has been made. I think the other great thing about this book is the kind of story of how it came to be published. Hannah Kent is quite obviously, I guess from her name, not Icelandic. She's Australian. And she was incredibly young when she wrote this book. She was a university student studying history, I believe, when she wrote it. I think I might be university. But she had basically been given an opportunity as part of her studies to go and live abroad. And she said, yeah, I'm going to live somewhere where it's snowy. I want to go live somewhere that's snowy, because we don't have that, So she gave it, and she ended up going to Iceland. And she went to Iceland. But at the beginning, there was like a host family, and she was going to go to Icelandic school. But it didn't really work out. They weren't looking after her properly, and she was kind of, I think most of us would have just gone home. Yeah. But she decided to try and learn Icelandic, and she did that. And then she got put with this second host family who almost seemed to try and make up for her experiences. So she ended up getting taken to the site where this crime, by this host family. They showed her all around Iceland, and they took her to the site of this crime where it took place, and that's what lodged in her brain. And she then wrote this kind of manuscript, and somebody submitted it for an unpublished manuscript award without kind of telling her, and she won it. And she won tutorship by the brilliant historical novelist Geraldine Brooks gave her, and so that's how it came in. It's so fast paced to read. That's the great thing about it.
Amazing. So Nick mentioned that you read a bit of cozy crime, cozy fantasy, that style of thing. I've got a few books that combine those two things. Either because
I'm not looking because I don't want to spoil.
Oh yeah. Should I do this? Have you seen any of these before?
Okay. I own Hellion Death.
You own Helen Death.
Yeah. Helen Death, but I'd be interested in your thoughts, because I need to read it. And the only one I've read is Death and Croissants.
Fine. Now, Death and Croissants, that's me plumbing the back catalogue, because my current favourite, Nick says you've already read The Three Dahlias. You've read this series.
I've only read the first two. I haven't read the...
Yeah, I read the Christmassy one.
No.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's do a couple of fantasy ones, and I'll come back to a crime one.
Okay.
Have you read Josiah Bancroft before?
No.
So he read a thing a few years ago. which was absolutely wonderful, called Senlin Ascends, completely sort of free form, all kinds of like random stuff in a sequence. It, really, really imaginative, but not a sort of tightly plotted thing. And then his new series, beginning with the Hexologists, is absolutely wonderful, streamlined, funny. It's got that sort of Pratchett-esque satire, sort of a steampunk thing going on, and just amazing characters that you love hanging around with. So all it is, it's Isolde and Warren Wilby. They are a wife-husband detective duo, private detective duo. She also happens to be a hexologist. And hexology is a form of magic in this world, which is allowed to persist in a world where most forms of magic have been outlawed. There's been a sort of civil war between magicians.
Interesting.
And lots of them have been killed, or they're in hiding, or they've retired. At the beginning of the book, they are commissioned by the Crown because the king is trying to bake himself into a cake, which seems like a completely random thing. Later, one of these things, later in the book, that becomes completely rational. There's a very rational reason why the king is trying to bake himself into a cake. Everything in the book is, there. Yes, they're commissioned by the Crown because the king's trying to bake himself into a cake, and an heir to the throne, or a chap claiming to be an heir to the throne, is blackmailing the king and saying, look, I want what's owed to me. And the Crown commissioned the Wilbys to do something about it. Now, they're not fans of the monarchy. They don't want to work for the monarchy. They work for whoever pays them. They agree to this mission, and instantly a huge sort of ent creature smashes through the door of their home and tries to kill them. Right, so it's immediately really high stakes adventure.
Yeah.
Every chapter is a set piece. They have a sort of a luggage, something like the Pratchett luggage, which is this infinite briefcase called the Portal Manteau. And inside the Portal Manteau lives a dragon that they become friends with, and Warren cooks for it. It's got a bit of humour.
Yes.
But it's
and I love
it's wonderful.
like fantastical mysteries. It's kind of like a
It's a great crossover. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and it's on that cozy end of things.
Yeah.
Nothing horrible really happens. There is injustice, and there's a sense that they're keen to deal with it. I'm glad you said you like fantasy mysteries. Have you heard of Francis Wright, Voyage of the Dawn?
I have heard.
Have you got this already?
No, I don't.
No. It's well worth a read. It's got a great range of representation. Main character, Ganymedes Pissarro, is a man of appetite for food, sex, experience. He is one of the 12 magical representatives of the nation of Concordia. So what you're sort of getting in the book is one of these very political fantasy novels where there's multiple sort of factions and nations, each with their own agenda, or pulling in different directions, causing a conflict. The only people you meet are the 12 magical representatives of each place. There is a sort of goddess who keeps balance in the world by making sure that only one person has any sort of magical ability in any of these nations, and it's meant to cause this sort of balance. And of course there's terrible imbalance. The Pissarro clan, of which Ganymedes is ostensibly the head, they do all the fishing and they're really looked down as. There's lots of interesting class commentary in the book. No sooner does the boat leave than one of them is murdered. So it's sort of a locked room, gay magical mystery cruise fantasy. It's just every sort of subcategory you can attach to it. Just about everything. And it's it's very funny. It's written in the first person. He's a really sort of sassy narrator. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of that.
Oh, fun! Oh my goodness.
And then I just thought something a little different just to finish with. Did you hear? You must have heard about the Turnglass when that came out. No. So the thing about the Turnglass, it's not exactly a cozy crime, but it's the tone of a crime novel that's more about the mystery, the setting, the characters, the concepts, and much less about sort of high stakes, blood and gore sort of thing, right? It's also one of these things where what looks like a gimmick actually pays off in a really cool way. So the novel is what the French apparently call a tête-bêche, which is 2 novels, right? So you have this novel, and then you flip the thing over, and you have this novel. It's 2 novels.
Interesting.
And you begin this side, and it's written like this, and then it's upside down for you. Yeah, really fun.
Okay.
It's about a chap on this side in I think Victorian Britain called Simeon Lee. Simeon Lee is a doctor attempting to raise some money to do some medical research. Nobody wants to fund him, so he goes and works for his uncle. He lives on Rain Island in Essex. It's one of these books with amazing sort of a gothic setting. You really feel there. You feel the oppression of this place, the history of the place. He goes to work for his uncle because his uncle is getting steadily more sick by the day. And nobody can work out why. And of course the first thing Simeon does is see, what is he being poisoned or whatever. The uncle insists that the local community hate him and somebody's got it in for him. And there's sort of hints of some plot, maybe something sort of supernatural. And just as try as he might, nobody can figure out sort of what's going wrong. Anyway, this novel eventually concludes in like a really cool, satisfying way. While he's treating the uncle, he meets a woman who lives on the other side of the house. So it's this enormous kind of Gothic mansionette. The library is cut in half by a huge pane of glass. And in fact, he discovers the whole house is like this. It's a house of 2 halves. And behind the glass lives a woman, turns out to be a murderer, right, who's, rather than going to prison, has been allowed to live in the house. One evening, as he's treating his uncle, he sees the woman pointing to a book on the shelf on Simeon's side of the library. And one evening he takes it down, starts reading it, and it's a novel about a man called Ken Kurian in interwar Hollywood. It's a book from the future, right, in this library.
Okay.
And he starts reading this book. When you get the conclusion of Simeon Lee's story, you flick it over, and guess what? You're reading that novel. You're reading a novel about this chap called Ken Kurian, who's is an aspiring actor who turns amateur detective. So roughly, it's 2 amateur detective stories. The real fun of it is that it's great reading of other people if they're doing it at the same time, because you will theorize 100 theories on how the 2 things are going to intersect. And I got it wildly wrong.
Wow.
Yeah, great fun. All right.
Well, oh my goodness.
All right.
Crazy.
I might group them a little. We'll see.
Okay.
You read The Gracekeepers?
Nope.
No? Okay, great. That's good.
Ooh.
So Kirsty Logan, Scottish writer. This is fantasy with a really warm heart. It has also got a dark side because I think it's a slight environmental dystopia, I would call it as well. So you're in our world, but it has been slightly believably broken up so that there's more water than land.
Interesting.
And you have two different sort of portions of society. This is, by the way, what I would call that sort of lyrical fantasy.
Yeah.
When we talk, that's kind of where I came to this one.
Okay.
Of the things we talked about. And you're with a few different people, including North, who is a girl who is a performer on a waterborne circus. So the people who are on the water, they're at a huge disadvantage because they can't grow food and fish, but they can't. There's a lot they need from the land, and there's a lot less land, and the people on the land therefore wield the power. So this is a waterborne circus that goes from port to port, performing and bartering in exchange for the things that they need. And this circus is so beautifully drawn. It's definitely a good overlap for kind of Erin Morgenstern as well.
Yep, I can.
Just because it's so rich, the description. So you've got this series of boats, and then she's on this coracle North, and she performs with a bear. So her and the bear just travel on the sea in this little coracle boat along this string and they come into port, and then gradually the sort of tensions arise between. But there's a great sort of sense of community amongst the circus people, but then gradually you get to know a little bit of them, and of course there's no such thing as communities, so there's little niggles going on there, and then there's the kind of tension between land and you're also with another character who is a gracekeeper, which means so you can't really bury people on land because there's not much land, so now you have to bury people at sea because it makes a lot of sense. And she looks after the graves at sea, and there's a little kind of they tend to keep a bird in a little cage instead of a gravestone, and then release that after a certain time. She's the one who's looking after that, and it's a very lonely existence just offshore. And you wonder through the book whether her kind of world and North's will collide, because the two stories are kind of very closely linked. Yeah.
Oh my god, all these books sound so good.
This is a historical time travel mystery.
Oh yeah. I just look at that cover and I really
It's a great cover, isn't it?
I really like that cover. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I really like it. This is, I think this book, deserves a really much bigger readership. It's great. It's a really great book. So it's about this character whose name not recall off the top of my head.
I never remember names.
I do, because often I do, because I don't remember it from when I read it. I remember it from the last time I talked about it. But in this instance, I'm not remembering. What's she called? Rosa. And she is living in 1944, 1945, and she is repeatedly living in 1944, 1945.
Wow.
She never goes beyond. It kind of restarts.
Interesting. Okay.
And there's you find out why, but that's part of the kind of inner mystery of the early part of the novel. And it's about her being locked in 1945 and wanting to go beyond. It's about her sort of working out why, and it's about the possibility of a time portal that enables her to go back or ultimately forward. And it's kind of also, there's also like a coming of age thing going on here, because she's a late teen character. So there's aside from the kind of, there's some great time travel. She kind of discovers that other people are able to make use of these portals, and there are other people who can wander about in time, and yet she's kind of perpetually trapped. But her making the break for it is kind of also just like that teenager leaving home kind of allegory thing going on. It's really good. It's really it's slightly difficult to talk about in much more depth than that.
Yeah, because I imagine it starts to change.
I did some kind of interview with her. It wasn't like a event, but we talked about it at some point. It is not one of those books where she spent ages working about, the sort of butterfly effect and rules of, she did not come at it from a scientific standpoint. She made it very clear. The set of rules is there. And she didn't then work out whether it could. A couple of classics, just because I said a word.
Yeah.
Edmund Crispin, The Moving Toy Shop.
Oh.
So I just get, like crime novels, you just have to really tell you the setup, and then you have to read the rest.
Yeah.
But basically the setup is a body is found in a toy shop. I think it's in Oxford, if I remember. And it's and then no sooner has that discovery been made than the next morning the whole toy shop has gone, not just the body, but the toy shop is no longer there. And thus begins the. And then I promised, because you said you didn't like spy fiction, to show you a spy novel. Because why not? I can. So Dorothy B. Hughes was a great sort of writer of. It's not really spy fiction. It's noir. It's American noir genre.
Yeah.
So Chandler and Dashiell Hammett were the greats. But she just was such a good writer, and she's so underread. So this book begins with this woman. It's in 1940s. It's New York, and the main character is walking out of Carnegie Hall. There's been a big concert. And as she walks out, and you're just with her as she's walking out, and then she locks eyes on someone coming in, and she goes, "Oh God, they found me." And she goes straight to her apartment, packs a bag, goes down to Grand Central Station, gets on a train, headed south, and just like immediately gets out of there. She knows.
Wow.
It. And she heads south because she's heard of a guy in New Mexico called the Blackbird who can get you out of the country. Get you out of America, because it's World War II, so it's weird because it's World War II setting, but it's America, not any of the standard sort of European settings. And so she's there trying to get hold, and then most of the action takes place in Santa Fe in New Mexico, so in all the sort of adobe houses and everything, with her trying to work out how to get out, and you trying to piece out who she's running from and why.
Does sound good.
So it's not that kind of corridors of power spy fiction with all the sort of, it's more noir than spy.
Interesting. Oh my goodness.
Have you ever read Alan Bradley's books?
No.
So he is, again, one of our favourite kind of country house mystery writers.
Yeah. She's like.
Yeah, so there's a whole bunch, and they've all got titles that are just as silly, so you're going to love them. And his protagonist, his detective, is a very precocious 11-year-old called Flavia DeLuce, who you really want to clip around the ear. She's so precocious, right? She's so, so if you can handle that and you like it, then it's going to be brilliant for you. If you find it too infuriating, then this will be the one and only series for you. And it will be that's a good thing. 1950s Devon and Cornwall settings. Yeah, great series. Really.
Yeah, there's a lot of buzzwords.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
How have we not heard of this? That's crazy.
Yeah, I think he's really underread. Like, I recommend this a lot, and sometimes I recommend this is a great one, so I recommend it to younger readers as well. So it's adult fiction for sure, but because it's got a young protagonist,
it can help get
so
you
often
in.
we get like 12-13-year-olds who've got started reading Christie, but they're finding it maybe the language just a little bit old-fashioned. So I often show them something like this, and it's like, as long as they can handle a little bit of swearing, then there's nothing too bad.
Wild. Oh my gosh.
And then, have you ever come across this? This is Scandi Noir.
No.
So this is Scandi Noir. It's a bit darker than some of your favourite ones.
Yeah.
But I just think this plot could not have existed without the great ones. It's the most it's almost like, so she wrote lots of books, right? And this, I think, is technically the 8th book featuring this detective. It's not translated from Norwegian, but it was the first one the publisher did here. So it's not, you don't need, it's the first one to be translated.
Yeah.
And I think it's, I don't know, but I believe it's sort of considered sort of her kind of great.
Yeah.
And the plot is just so many tropes all rolled into one. Like, it's
stuck on a train.
Yeah, they're stuck on a train. It's the coldest day in Norway's history. The train comes to a halt. They have to traipse across the this snowy landscape in order to, and they find a deserted hotel, kind of slightly Shining vibes. They go in there. They kind of get warm and everything. A crime takes place.
Wow.
It has to be someone there. It's all getting a bit sort of like a kind of Gosford Park vibe. But then, and you need a detective. But hey, wait, there's the recently retired lesbian wheelchair-bound detective ready to to kick in, and it's so full of so many kind of
Yeah.
Have you come across Boris Akunin?
No.
So he's so set in Russia. The detective here is Sister Pelagia, who is a nun who is investigating the death of a bulldog.
Oh no!
But there's a lot more too. But I think for the sort of slightly cozier, but with a completely different setting, because that's the other thing we often end up doing with the kind of anything in genre fiction, especially crime.
Yeah.
Going to one set in different places. So
Yeah.
he is like the go-to Russian historical mystery, quite gentle.
Oh.
I also haven't read this. This is the other one.
Oh, I see Janice Hallett on the front.
It's got Janice on the front. 1940s. So it's got a golden age of crime. I know a little bit about it because we've got it's in our Christmas catalogue, which we all debate endlessly. The 120 books that we've got in our Christmas catalogue. Oh yeah, which is right.
Oh yeah, I had a little look at it.
Yeah. And so a couple of my colleagues were massive advocates for this. It sounds amazing, I must say, the setting. I haven't got to it yet. But
Well, mate.
1944. Just that. Have you read The Five, by the way?
Yeah, I love the Five.
Non-fiction.
I love
that. Was gonna. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
I love it.
Good. I'm glad.
Really love.
The other one is this, this is a 19th century historical fiction set in Glasgow. There's like a sign language element to it because one of the key protagonists is deaf. So we were talking about books that do interesting things, kind of in the narrative style or in the telling, and that's kind of the twist to this. Apart from the fact that it's a 19th century mystery set in Glasgow, it's just pre-Victorian. So it's kind of, I was umming and ahhing between bringing you this and a book called Net for Small Fishes by Lucy Jago, which is sort of again a 19th century. Lucy Jago is a little bit earlier, and it's kind of a court, like royal court mystery. But yeah, I thought I'd bring you this just because the having a deaf protagonist, having the kind of element of the communication element to it, it's kind of intriguing.
Well, okay, it should.
I just about the Rorschach texts. If it came out like new now, it is exactly the sort of thing that would be a huge sensation. So there is bits of this book where the text form kind of breaks down. You begin in a guy's apartment in a hallway. He's lying on the floor. He's just coming back to some kind of come back to life. He's coming back and he's lying in the hallway. He's sweating. He's completely like he's gone through some kind of ruinous experience. You're not sure what, and he kind of crawls and he finds this kind of envelope, this like jiffy envelope next to him, and he opens it up and it's a message in there from himself to him. And it basically said, this has happened again and again. This is not the first time this has happened. Here's what you need to know. And there's also like a crushed light bulb in it. And there are various other kind of things in it. And you're trying to piece together what's going on.
Wow.
And it involves a kind of... So it's kind of some kind of... You're not sure how much is in his mind. You're not sure how much is reality. There's an amazing chase scene behind the bookshelves of a large Waterstone at one point, which is awesome. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Is that enough? I don't know if is enough to think about. I don't know if I've covered everything.
I think
there's a few things I was hoping were going to be there.
Hello friends, so I am home now. It is actually Christmas Eve. So it's been a couple of days since I went to Mr. B's, but honestly, it was one of the most wonderful experiences. If I seem a bit off, I currently don't know if all of the footage from Mr. B's is corrupted or not, because my SD card corrupted.
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
So we're crossing our fingers and our toes that all that footage is okay. It seems like it's okay. I took it into a shop and thinks he's recovered most of the footage, but we shall know tomorrow. But I'm feeling a bit nervous, but hopefully reading can help calm me down. Hopefully, this video could look very different than what I'm hoping it will look like for you, but we shall see. So I'm home, and it was honestly an incredible experience. So for kind of your information, seeing if you want to book something like this, it's £105 for the reading spa with a bookseller, but you also get a £60 book voucher as part of that to spend on the books they recommend. So it's only about a £45 for the experience, and honestly, in my opinion, I think it's worth it. This is not sponsored. I've paid for the experience and all these books I bought with my own money. They did give me a mug, which is very kind of them, but the whole experience I paid for myself. But I think it's worth it if you have that kind of money to spend on an experience like that. Obviously, if that's not in your budget, if that's something you could even consider, I'm not telling you to go out and do it, but I just had the most wonderful time getting to speak to someone about books who like knows so much about books and wants to hear my opinions was so fun, because like I just speak to the camera most of the time, right? And just sitting down with someone on these comfy chairs and just chatting about books and what I love in books was just such a wonderful experience. I imagine it would be even better for some of you guys like who don't get to vlog about your feelings about books, right? I loved it. I would do it again in a heartbeat. I would recommend it to anyone in a heartbeat. I think it was such a wonderful experience. Honestly, I had so much fun. I adored it, and I bought a lot of books. So let me show you, actually. I bought a lot of books, 15 to be exact. So what I thought we'd do to decide what ones I'm going to read is I'm going to read the first chapter of all of them. The first one I'm going to do is the Hexologists. I just picked out the bag to show my patrons one of them, and then we're going to go through. So I'm literally going to sit in a spot and read the first chapters of all of these. Yeah, I'm very excited. After having such a wonderful experience, I'm so interested to see whether that converts into great reading experiences. So let's go for it.
10 years later.
Okay, friends, it's been a while since I last spoke to you. I have had a time with this video. I found out on Christmas Eve that all the footage had been lost. And I sobbed for hours whilst wrapping Christmas presents.
And I really scratched my head and I wonder, where's God when you need him?
Because this was a big experience and I was so excited to share with you guys. But one of my parents' friends, my family friends, came through Gary and he saved the footage. I'm so happy. That did mean I went away and read the first chapters of all the books and I didn't film it because I was too upset. However, after reading the first chapters, we ended up with 6 books that I rated the first chapters 8 out of 10. We had nothing above an 8 out of 10. Let me tell you, we would have had another one. I gave this one 7 in the end because there's this line I could not get over. Let me find this line. This guy walks into this shop and finds a dead body, right, of a 60-year-old woman. And there is a line saying, "There was no ring on her left hand, and the flatness of her breast had already suggested that she was unmarried."
A profound silence has entered the chat.
What the actual fuck? What? What is that line? Anyways, I just had to share that with you. So, we ended up with these 6. Last night I was on sprints with my patrons and I was like, okay, now we have to choose 3 from this. I, at that time, forgot that the Turn Glass was 8 out of 10, so I didn't even see it as a contender. So, I mean, obviously that's a sign. This one is really cool though. I'm really interested in how it's like 2 books, where you read one half and read the other. I discounted the Rorschach text, because I know Kayla didn't really enjoy this, and it's quite long, and I just felt like, I don't know if I want to take that risk, right? I don't know if I want to take that risk. I then immediately selected The Golden Gate. A lot of my patrons recommended me this one, wanted me to read this one. You know, it's like a historical murder mystery. I feel like this is really my bread and butter. I keep saying my bread and butter. This is like a new phrase to me. What the hell? Someone needs to shut me up. I said it loads in my last video. We picked this one, and I immediately picked Hear No Evil by Sarah Smith because this seems very unique. It's based on a true case from Scottish legal history of a deaf woman who was accused of killing her child, and I just think this seems maybe a bit more literary. It seems like a very unique book, so I'm very interested in this one. So those 2 were definites, and that left us with 2 options. We have the Hexologists and the Immortals. Both of these first chapters I really, really like. So I let my patrons vote on it. We have a section on our Discord called Pick My Next Read, where people do polls to find out what their next book's gonna be. And I think these are both super interesting. I think this is a stronger first chapter. It's a really, really strong first chapter. I think the premise of this holds more promise. So they voted and they picked the Immortals for me. So these are the 3 books we're going to be reading in this vlog to test out Mr. B's recommendations. I think I'm going to start with the one that feels the safest, and that is The Golden Gate. I'm very intrigued by this one. It just sounds like, it sounds very atmospheric. It sounds like my kind of thing. It had a really short first chapter, this one, like only 6-7 pages, but it packed a punch. It packed a punch. And also there's like deposition interviews, which seems very interesting. I don't think there's a ton. There's actually a fair amount of those. So I'm going to start with this one. Super excited. I'll let you know probably when I'm halfway through. But this one just seems like the safest. Let's go with like my usual kind of reading to start us off. Hello friends. Apologies if I look a bit bedraggled. I've literally just woken up from a nap. I think you can still see sleep lines, but all I want to do is get back in bed and read this book, and I got halfway before I fell asleep for 2 hours. So let's talk about it. I'm awake. So this is set in 1944 in San Francisco, and a murder takes place of a former presidential candidate, and also there's a little bit of a past timeline, but it's mainly present day, about a girl who died at the hotel as well, like 14 or 7, one of those years ago. And her sister and cousins are now kind of wrapped up in this murder as well. I'm really, really, really enjoying this. Really, really, really enjoying this. We're following mainly from the point of view of a detective, and I just think he's an interesting character. He's mixed race at this time, in this historical time, and that, you know, informs a lot of his interactions with people. He's mixed race, I think, Mexican and white, and so there's also that, like, dynamic of, like, how Mexican people were perceived at the time. And he has this niece who's, like, 11, who has, like, a potty mouth and, like, works at a diner, and she's just a very funny little character. I really like her. And this is just a very interesting book. In the US cover, it reads much more like historical fiction with a mystery, whereas I feel like this cover reads more mystery with a historical element to it. And I do think it fits more in that. It feels more like a murder mystery, but it is very strong on the historical stuff as well. We have, like, sometimes, like, a page randomly of, like, San Franciscoian history from, like, the 20th century, from, like, 1900s onwards. I said 1900. I can't repeat what I just said. 19 onwards. I just said. So that's an interesting element. Like, he'll just sit down and start talking to us about, like, why the San Francisco and, like, Chinatown, like, what the historical and, like, political things have been there, or here, like, there's a lot to do with, like, immigration, and, like, giving us a deep history of that, which I find is very interesting. I'm loving it. I'm finding the murder mystery element very interesting. We've also got interspersed full cast interviews with the grandmother of they call them the Bainbridge girls, who are the girl and the cousins who one of the sisters died many years ago at the hotel, and because they're accused of the murder, or they're, like, embroiled in this murder somehow. So we've got interviews with the grandma that I'm finding very interesting. I'm finding it very, very interesting. At the moment, I'd say it's, like, a really, really strong 4. I'm not getting that 5-star feeling. You know, like, that 5-star feeling, it's magical. You know what I mean? You can't, you know, you can't describe it in words. There's nothing wrong with it, though. Maybe I'll be a 4.5. Like, I'm really, really enjoying this. I'm loving the historical setting. I'm loving the location they're in as well, and how, you know, the historical setting informs that. I'm loving the detective. I'm really enjoying reading from his point of view. I think he's got a very, very interesting narrative voice and quite, like, a strong, like, personality, and I enjoy how we're being led into little bits of his past life. Guys, this is why I did love doing Year of Rex, even though it didn't give me often the best ratings. It does mean, you know, I never would have read this book if I hadn't gone to Mr. B's and had this recommendation. I never would have had this recommendation. Ever. I never would have read this book. Ever. I never would have had this. So that goes for all of the books, pretty much, almost. Like, probably 13 out of the 15 of the books I got recommended I've never heard of. So I'm loving it. It's a very, very interesting book. It feels like it has some intelligence to it. I'm loving it. So I'm gonna go finish it. I'll either see you tonight or tomorrow. I just don't think I've read anything like this. It's like, it is a murder mystery, but it's also so strongly historical. Usually it's just like a book is set historical if it's a murder mystery for the vibes and for, like, the atmosphere, but there's something really, we're really going into the depth and the nuances of a historical setting. I will say this is the author's debut fiction novel, but she's written a lot of non-fiction, and those sections do read a bit non-fiction-y when she just starts for a whole page telling us, like, the history of this area of San Francisco. Like, I understand why someone wouldn't like that, but I'm finding it interesting. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish it. I'll check in with you when I have. But yeah, it's a very, very intriguing book. Okay, hello. We need to discuss this book. I'm trying to find a spot where I'm not blinded by the light. So I think here, because I don't want to pull the blinds over, then it gets dark. Okay, I have finished The Golden Gate by Amy Chua. I'm giving this a 3.5.
Oh, I'm sorry, but it ain't on. No, it's not on. No.
Because I loved most of this book, but the ending, the last 40 pages, insane. Not in a good way. Not in a good way. Absolutely certifiably insane. The rest of this book is this really interesting historical police procedural with, like, this, you know, kind of art deco feeling at this hotel, and very opulent, and, like, the mystery of these sisters and what have you, and the policeman who we're following is very interesting. There's a lot of, like, conflicting emotions and feelings that we examine. But the reveal, the whodunit, which really a murder mystery rests on its ending, I think, more than a lot of other books. Not good. You really feel, I think, its debutiness in the ending, where I didn't feel like I felt it in the rest of the book. But she did not know how to wrap this book up. It is insane. It is, like, the most preposterous, like, And it's like multiple reveals. It's like reveal, and they are all insane.
You know, it sounds crazy. And indeed it was.
They are all ridiculous. It reminds me of like when I had to write, when you had to devise like your own written performance in drama GCSE to like write a play, and like I came up with the most out of pocket like. Actually, it was we were doing like this ghost thing where we were all doing monologues. We'd all died. We were all ghosts, and I'm not gonna say what mine was, but it haunts me to this day. I'm so embarrassed that I performed that. Like it's the way my character died. It just reminded me of that. It's just like, this is out of pocket. This is ridiculous. The reveals and it doesn't help that it's like a 20-page, I'm exaggerating, 10-page, 20-page, like written statement from the person who's at the center of this, just like taking you through this happened and this. It's like, I won't call it a villain's monologue, it's not really a villain, but like the person who's behind everything, just taking you through it step by step is not interesting. It's not a good way to end a book. It's like, it tells all this time, don't do a villain's monologue at the end, like here's how it all happened. Like that's just not interesting. I was reading it, I was like, fuck, this is so annoying, because the rest of this book is so good, but this ending is insane. Insane. Beyond insane. I don't know what to say. It was bad. It was really bad. And I feel like this is going to be forgettable as a result. So, you know, it was an interesting reading experience, a book I would never have picked up otherwise. I enjoyed a lot of this. I maybe will try out this author in the future if she does write another fiction book. She's written so many non-fiction books. Maybe I'll pick one of those up. But the ending, you need to learn how to end a book, babes. You need to learn how to end a book. Okay, I'm going to start Hear No Evil next. I've got reading sprints tonight with my patrons, so I'm going to start this then. However, we've got something very exciting to do together. Oh my god, guys, it's so heavy. Look at this. Look what's arrived. My new laptop! I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I've got a new laptop because my current one, I don't know how much I've told you guys. I think I talked to my patrons about this a lot. It is awful. It dies multiple times a day, 6 times a day plus. It has a broken touch bar that flashes, like, and it gives me almost an epileptic fit. Like, it's really bad, flashing, and it's so slow. And we think that's why the footage for this video, really what prompted me getting a laptop is the footage for this video corrupting, because the guy at the camera computer store who helped me initially said he thinks it was my laptop that caused that footage to corrupt. So we had to get a new one. We had to get a new one ASAP. So shall we unbox this together? I don't know if I'm going to end up using it. I've got to like set everything up. So I don't know if I'll use it for my sprints tonight, because I've got that in like 2.5 hours. But yeah. Oh my god, I'm so excited for this. I can't really believe I've got a new one, because this wasn't in the plan. I was trying to hold out until we'd bought a place to get a new one, but because of that footage corrupting and just how bad my laptop is, like it crashes. It will probably crash in a second. It crashes so often. We couldn't wait any longer. So let's go unbox this together. I don't know how long I'm going to speak or how loud, because I'm very cozy in bed with my heated blanket on, and Dida is on the bed and she's so happy and so sleepy, and I don't want to... Oh, the ear is pointed in my direction. She's listening. The ear went... like, She's listening. She's like, who the fuck is she talking to? There's no one else in here. She loves when Tom's not here because she gets his side of the bed. Anyways, let me talk quickly about this. So I am halfway through Hear No Evil by Sarah Smith. This is so interesting. So this book is essentially based on a real case in Scottish legal history. I don't know how much this is like the true, you know, like the same names, exactly the same circumstances, but essentially a deaf woman is accused of killing her baby by throwing it into the river. And we're following predominantly her interactions with a man who's a local teacher. He actually teaches in Edinburgh and she's in Glasgow, but he has a school for deaf children, and so he's brought in to communicate with her and find out how capable she is of testifying, what her story is as to what happened. And then we do follow some other timelines, but their interactions where it's just them talking and him trying to get the truth out of her are so well written. The writing of this is perhaps impeccable.
No, I don't think you understand. I'm obsessed.
Since we've been following some other storylines and some other timelines, I haven't found it as compelling, but the scenes we get when it's just them, I am kind of obsessed with. It's got this gentleness to it. It's very slow paced. If you're looking for a fast paced book, this is not it. But it's got this gentleness to it, but this, I don't know, it feels quite literary, it feels quite serious. The thing is, I'm reading this, but I also, like, I'm like, after this I want to read something fun, you know? I want to read something ridiculous, a little bit silly. But, no, I am really enjoying it. I'm terrified. I don't want it to be a romance, though. I'm going to be so mad if it's a romance, because I really love his wife, and I can't tell you that, but I really love his wife, and there's little hints that he's, like, what's the word I'm looking for? He finds her very interesting, right? Jean, the woman who's accused of killing her baby. Like, he finds her very intriguing. They're both, like, he doesn't seem like that kind of guy either, but I'm just, like, living in fear that he's going to cheat on his wife.
I'm relaxed.
I'm happy.
I'm fearful.
You're fearful.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I just think the writing is impeccable. It's dark, it's historical, it's, you know, set in this dirty, murky world. And she, for some reason, doesn't feel comfortable. She's like, I didn't do it. Or, I don't know if she denies she did it, but she's like, I'm not guilty, right? But she won't divulge her reasoning behind why she's not. Or, like, who did it, or who was involved, or yada yada. Yeah, there's not much to say, but it's just slow and gentle and quiet, but I'm very intrigued by it. It's predominantly just them sitting in a jail cell talking, but I find their interactions very, very interesting. And like when he travels to Glasgow to try and see some of the people involved, I'm finding all the characters very distinctive. The audiobook is great. They do a great job with all the Scottish and there's some Irish accents as well. And I'm predominantly just listening to the audiobook. I'm loving the audiobook of this. So that's where we are. Dida is still successfully asleep, so I'm going to go carry on reading this. I'm probably going to try and finish this tonight. I feel like it's quite different than other stuff I read, but it's also very interesting how this is based on a real case, and I'm quite interested in, like, this is another one of my sub YouTube sections other than BookTube. I told you guys about, sorry, I've been like crooked this entire time. I've been like, oh, my neck just clicked. You know, I watch a lot of like theme park YouTube, right? I also love a bit of lawyer tube. When Emily D. Baker's got a good case going, I watch that every single day. I don't tend to watch it like otherwise, but when she's got a good case going, the Murdaugh trial, I watched a lot of. The Karen Reid trial, Karen Reid, I struggled. I got like the first 10 days. I think of streaming every day a court case. That's like 8 hours of content to watch every single day, or you get behind. But I do love legal stuff and cases, right? And I do like books that have kind of court settings or, you know, legal elements. Sorry, I'm like, with me trying to talk quietly and not wake her up, I'm not thinking of words. Oh my god, I love her so much. Guys, you don't understand how much I love her. I'm just so obsessed with her. She's like the greatest thing to ever exist. She is so fucking ridiculous and funny. She's so funny. Anytime I leave the room, she has to leave the room if we're together. So today I was working at my desk and I needed the toilet and she was on the bed sleeping. And I tried to like stand up from my desk as quietly as I could, but she woke up and she gets up and she's like half asleep, moaning at me because she's such a moaner. She goes, that woke her up. I wasn't saying anything, I promise. Go back to sleep. anyway, moaning at me, stumbling around, half asleep, first thing I've ever read, but she has to get up with me, and she's like complaining that we're getting up, and I'm like, Dita, I'm telling you, you can stay there, I'll be back in like 30 seconds. But she can't do that. She was so funny. She was like that, you know, that polar bear? Yeah, the really like ruffled, half awake polar bear. That's what she looked like. She was ridiculous. Anyways, I'm gonna go finish this with my Dita and my heated blanket, and I'll see you in the morning with my thoughts. Okay, this one is an interesting one. I'm giving this 4 stars in the end. I think the writing of this for a debut is insane. I think this is so well written. The way that the chapters are structured, the way that sentences are structured, the way it flows, it's so gentle, it's so quiet. Like, I don't know how else to describe the book other than quiet. It's not flashy, it's not showy, it's just quite intimate and slow and small, and I just think the writing of it was wonderful. However, there's not much plot. Because this is based on a real case, I think the writer is perhaps a little bit constrained by that, and rather than letting the imagination like float, like it's like an event and the trial and the aftermath, right, and you're kind of restrained to that bubble of events, and it just meant I felt like not a lot happened. Like, I feel like we know there's like a twist or like a reveal, I guess, as to the truth behind the events, and I feel like you know that for quite a while. Like, there's not like a massive moment where a twist is revealed. You're just kind of like, oh, okay, that's what happened for like most of the book. And I feel like the ending is a little bit anticlimactic. It's just like, oh, okay. There is one touch at the end with someone getting beaten up that I very much appreciate.
Down him! Get him! Kick him! Get him! Get him! Get him!
You know, the writing makes up for it, and it's a small story, but like, it being small and quiet is both a benefit and a what's the word I'm looking for? Pro and con. It's both of those things at once. It feels gentle, it feels small, it feels quiet, but also it feels small and it feels quiet. You know what I mean? So, I don't know, on the balance, I'm giving it a 4. I would recommend this if you're looking for like something historical, legal slant. I thought it was very interesting, and I thought the deaf representation in this was handled with such care. That was actually one of the most interesting parts, seeing like deaf history and the history of sign language and the history of, you know, communities and support for deaf people. I thought was really fascinating. So yeah, I kind of feel like there's a lot to love about it, but I also don't have a ton to say about it. I would recommend it though. It's only got like 700 ratings on Goodreads, and I feel like it's really underrated for that purpose. I also feel like, you know, because Jean is the woman who's accused of killing her baby, is deaf and mute, like she doesn't speak. The whole story is told through the perspectives of those around her, and I feel like we never truly get to know Jean as intimately as you often would with a kind of person who the whole story centers around. However, I think that maybe that's the point, and that's meant to kind of make us reflect on something and what we expect from characters and what we expect to how, the disadvantages that deaf people face in society and the expectations people have of them. But I do think elements of the ending would feel more powerful had we spent more time with her, whereas we do spend a lot of time with Robert, who is the teacher who's trying to communicate with her. However, last book of the vlog, it is time now for The Immortals. I love the way this book feels. It has like a real, I think it's bound very well. It has like a great solidity to it. Like the spine feels very strong. I don't know how to describe it. Anyways, I'm really intrigued about this one. I'm reading another. I've realised these are all historical, the ones that I picked up. Although I feel like a lot of my recommendations were historical leaning at the very least. I feel like most of them are historical. So I'll check in with you on a little bit of the ways through this one. But yes, I'm intrigued by it from the first chapter. I thought the first chapter this was really, really strong. So I'm looking forward to diving into it myself. Okay, you may have noticed this is a different book what I said I was going to read. We will discuss that. Apologies in advance for my appearance and tiredness. We've just been on a very long walk, like 10, 15k, somewhere in that region, and I'm like... so, I'm gonna find a picture of a dog, that's me right now. I probably haven't finished a book in like 2 weeks.
I'm sorry, I have to be honest about...
And we need to unpack whether it's me or the books. I think it's me. So what happened was, I read like the first 40 pages of The Immortals in 6 days. Yeah, sit with that. sit with that. And then I had a reading space with my patrons on Monday or Tuesday of this week. It's now Saturday. They convinced me to DNF that, or just not DNF it, like I'm going to pick it back up again, but to switch it out from the vlog and instead pick up the Hexologist. And my immediate reaction was like, oh my god, I'm enjoying this so much more. I'm loving this so much more. It's Saturday and I'm just now under halfway through. I'm going to like finish this tonight and tomorrow, but what the fuck? Sorry, excuse my French. Why was I so shocked at myself swearing? I don't know what's going on. Why am I incapable of finishing books? I think the problem is me, because I feel the same way about both of these books in that I'm just not like invested. I feel distant. I feel like I'm not following what's happening. I don't care to follow what's happening. And so I really don't think the fault is the books. And I'm sad because I think I could have loved this in another life. And I'm enjoying it. But am I invested? Am I like, I can't put it down? No. So we're basically following a husband and wife duo who are kind of like detectives, and this is very fantastical. It's like kind of cozy. He described it, I was just editing the part of the interview or session where he describes it as cozy. It's not what I would call cozy. It's probably, I can see like cozy adjacent. It's got cozy elements that I really love, like this talking dragon. I need more of the talking. If the talking dragon was in the book right now, I'd be so invested, but he hasn't been there for like 50 pages at least, and my interest is waning more and more with every page I go away from the talking dragon. And the husband bakes for him. I love the talking dragon. So it has got those kind of elements, but then it's also got like quite, I mean, I want to say like Lovecraftian horror, but I don't really know what that is. Like when I've heard things like Arkham horror or whatever described as Lovecraftian, like I feel like the kind of fantastical, horrific creatures that we're seeing are very similar in regards to that. I'm enjoying the writing, but there's moments where I feel like the writing's a little bit over the top. I don't think fantasy is really what I need to be reading right now. I think I need stuff that I don't have to like, that is straightforward. Like the reason why Disney High worked, non-fiction. Facts is facts is facts. Or a murder mystery is straightforward. Who's the murderer? That's fine. Fantastical stuff right now, I just seem to not be jibing with. That like added element of imagination I seem to be struggling with. So I think it's really me. There's a lot of exciting stuff happening in life. Also, I've struggled in January mental health wise, but there's some really exciting stuff happening that I'm just going to tell you about in the next vlog, because this vlog's already 10 years long. I decided to like push it. I'll tell you all about it soon. But yeah, I'm just not desperate to pick this up. I'm not desperate to read. And when I filmed my 25 books in 2025 video recently, I'm desperate to read those. Now, if I pick them up, it might be different. But I'm just struggling. I've barely read, guys. I've finished 4 books this year in like 20-something days. And I didn't read for like the last 10 days of 2024. I think I'm forgetting how to read. It's really a problem. I just don't know where to start. So hopefully in the second half, I will have more thoughts for you on like because I'm gonna read. I read this over the course of a week, right? This I'm gonna read in the course of a day. So hopefully I'll have more like coherent thoughts for you of the pros and cons of this one. I'm enjoying it. I think I could enjoy it a lot more in another life, but I am enjoying it, but I'm not loving it, and I really just want to sleep instead. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting elements about it, but there's also a lot of characters. There's a lot of people, and there's a lot of threads to what we're investigating to do with like the royal family and people that the royal family knew, and the prince of the royal family, and the hospital he was in, and the army he was in. And it's just like so many people and so many types of creatures I feel like is being thrown at me. And another day I might be able to handle it, but I do not feel currently like I can. I really don't want to talk about this. I realised I never gave you a synopsis, so let's start there. And we'll get into what I think of it. So we're following a husband and wife duo who are kind of detectives, but magical detectives for hire. And in the first chapter, an assistant to the king comes and says he wants to be baked into a cake. Someone is saying there may be his son, he's very ill, so his sister is like handling everything, and he is adamant that he wants to be baked into a cake. And from there, this husband and wife duo are going to try and solve the mystery of who is saying they're the king's son, is it true or not? And there's a lot of creatures, fantastical magical creatures who get in their way, and other people with other kinds of magic. Okay, here's the thing. Keep in mind everything I said, that it may be me. I haven't finished a book in 2 weeks. I seem to be struggling to read. It could be me. However, I was bored. And a lot of the reviews, I'm giving this, what am I giving it? Oh, See, an enjoyment is probably like a 2.5, but I'm gonna give it a 3. Not that it really matters, because either of those ratings I would give a 3 on Goodreads, but I'm gonna give it a 3 for the benefit of the doubt that I think I am largely contributing to my issues with reading this. A lot of the reviews that are around that kind of bubble are just talking about how bored they were. On the face of it, this should be 5 stars. Historical, it's like Edwardian setting London, fantastical, mystery solving, husband and wife duo, a little bit cozy, talking dragon. Like, there's so many buzzwords and so many reasons this should be a 5 star, but I was just bored. I don't think the pacing of this is very good.
Shitless!
I just don't think it's paced well. I don't think there's something keeping your interest at every moment. The plot like meanders from event to event with no lead through. You need every event that it jumps from needing something that's propelling you, like a trampoline, and it feels like I'm getting dragged from event to event instead. Do you know what I mean? I was so bored. And the writing, usually I like a writing style that has a bit of something about it, you know, that like thinks it's shit hot, or like, I don't know, like an omniscient narrator or something like that. I feel like the author had 20 times more fun writing this than I had reading it. I think he thought he was very, very clever and thought he was very, very funny, and like every other page is going like, see what I did there? Wasn't that good? This is awkward. Wasn't that good? Like these long, drawn out, overly complex, I was gonna say clumpy, complex sentences that I just could not keep reading them. I could not keep reading them. So by the time we're getting towards the ending, I'm just kind of checked out, if I'm honest with you. I'm just kind of checked out. It really was not holding my interest. Actually, the next book I'm going to read is fantasy, and it's one I've been very excited for a very long time, and I'm kind of terrified. Like, is that I'm having a problem with fantasy, or was it just this book and the last book? I think the trend seems to suggest it's me, and like some of it is me, but I just think I need something that wasn't this. I'm so sad, because I really think, like I say on the tin, this should be 5 stars. Everything about this should be something that I love, but alas, it was not. So that gives Mr. B's an average rating for Year of Rex, if my maths is correct, of 3.5 exactly. And here's the thing, I could just have picked wrong from this. I'm sure there's going to be some 5 stars in amongst all the other books that I hold. I'm very interested in the thriller, is it like 1222? That one I'm very intrigued by. Some of the other mysteries I'm very intrigued by. I think I'm actually going to keep like a track of what ratings I give the Mr. B's book specifically, because it was just such a fun experience. It was such a fun experience. And like I said, I think maybe another time, I'm not sure how much of what I just said to you is me and how much of it is this book. So that does mean that the winner of Year of Rex is me. This was not how I wanted it to be. I did not think when I started Year of Rex that I would be the winner, but apparently I give myself the best reading recommendations. I don't know how that happened. Well, I guess it does make sense that I know my reading taste better than anyone else, and that going forward, I just need to trust myself and what I'm interested in and what I think is gonna be 5 stars. So there we have it, everyone. Year of Rex has come to a close belatedly. I'm only just getting this video out before it's been a full calendar year. I think I uploaded the other one, the first episode, on the 28th of January. So we're just getting it just before the end, but it has been a year. One rotation around the sun, and I had so much fun doing this series, so a big thank you to anyone who gave me book recommendations. The Mr. B's one was probably my favourite experience of them all. I would love to do it again one day. I just loved it so much, and I think there probably are some gems in amongst the books that I have not yet read. But yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts on any of the ones I got recommended, which ones that you really enjoyed, or which ones you've read, or any thoughts on them. I'd love to know. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I know this has been a long one, and I will see you very soon in another video. Bye!